Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to synthesize insights from 5 incredibly powerful sources to build a comprehensive framework for modern leadership. We'll be pulling from executive coaching frameworks, principles of essentialism, human resource strategies, the profound life philosophy of Clayton Christensen, and even some really cutting-edge academic research on AI decision-making. We're going to weave all of this together to show you how the absolute most effective leadership doesn't actually start with what you do. It starts from the core of exactly who you are.
So I want to start off by asking you to just take a second and deeply reflect on this quote. Who are you as a leader when the pressure's really on, when the stakes are super high and the path just isn't clear? Because let's be honest, it's so easy to lead when things are calm, right? But when everything around you is totally uncertain, well, that's when your true leadership identity gets tested. Do you have a firm, unwavering grasp on yours, or are you kind of just adapting to whoever the room needs you to be?
Here's our roadmap for today. Number 1, discovering your leadership identity. 2, measuring your life's success. 3, the discipline of essentialism. 4, leading with true curiosity. And finally, 5, integrating head, heart, and gut. Let's dive right into section 1, discovering your leadership identity.
All right, let's establish your true north. Now, take a look at the gap hiding in plain sight here. Most leaders, they operate almost entirely in that outer circle. They completely obsess over their impact, their output, their reputation. But according to the coaching experts at Intact Teams, true, durable leadership actually works from the inside out. There's this fantastic story from their research about a senior leader who stepped into a big new executive role. On paper, she was totally ready, but she felt like she was basically playing a character, softening her directness in some rooms, dialing it way up in others, and coming home feeling completely disconnected. She hadn't defined her inner circle, her core, absolute non-negotiable values. Once she did the deep, frankly difficult inner work to figure out what she would literally never compromise on, she stopped managing her persona and actually started leading. Because consistency builds trust, and you can only be consistent if you really know your inner circle.
Moving on to section 2, measuring your life's success.
Okay, so once we know our true north, we have to look at exactly how we measure a successful life, drawing on the timeless wisdom of the late Harvard Business School professor Clayton Christensen. High-achieving people have this unconscious propensity to overinvest in their careers and completely underinvest in their families. And why is that? Well, because a career provides immediate gratification. You close a deal, you ship a new product, you get that big promotion, boom, instant reward. Family and personal values, though, they require delayed gratification. It literally takes decades to raise good kids or build a really resilient marriage. Christensen warns us not to fall into the trap of prioritizing short-term gains over our long-term personal lives. You've got to allocate your finite resources, your time, your energy, your talent toward those long-term values, even when that short-term dopamine hit just isn't there.
And this brings us to a massive, massive trap, the just this once mentality. The marginal cost of doing something even slightly out of alignment with your values, just this once, it always seems so justifiable in the heat of the moment. But Christensen emphatically points out that it is much, much easier to hold to your commitments 100% of the time than 99% of the time. That 1% exception, it becomes a slippery slope, and over a lifetime, giving in to those marginal costs becomes a source of profound regret. Figure out your metrics for success and hold to them 100% of the time. No exceptions.
Section 3, the discipline of essentialism.
So, how do we actually protect this core identity in a world that is just so noisy? Just read the question on your screen. This is Gary Keller's brilliant focusing question, which is highlighted in the Axis 7 leadership framework. We live in a world literally overflowing with opportunities, but leverage without focus, that's just noise. True sovereignty as a leader does not come from doing more. It comes from doing less, but doing it better. If you can answer this question every single morning, you shift from just scattering your energy across a dozen minor tasks to concentrating all your force on the one domino that's going to knock down all the others.
If you doubt the power of doing less, just look at the historical track record here. When Steve Jobs returned to Apple, he famously eliminated dozens of product lines so they could focus on just a few absolute essentials. He was honestly as proud of what Apple didn't do as what it actually did. Bill Gates used to completely isolate himself twice a year for these think weeks with nothing but books and papers, and that yielded some of Microsoft's absolute biggest breakthroughs. And Cal Newport's research shows that in our highly distracted, notification-heavy economy, the ability to do deep, focused work isn't just nice to have, it is the ultimate competitive advantage. The absolute highest performers use intense elimination and isolation.
So, I want to challenge you to audit your past week. Really think about it.
How much of your time went to the alarms on the left, the urgent emails, the back-to-back meetings, the constantly putting out fires, and how much time actually went to the deep work on the right, strategic thinking, and actually building up a new skill? The main goal of the inside-out leader is to reclaim total ownership of their attention, acting from a place of real importance rather than just merely reacting to whatever feels urgent.
Here is the practical execution playbook that you can start using today to build a protective barrier around your attention. Number 1, create a stop-doing list. Literally, just eliminate 3 tasks this week that don't serve your core objectives. Number 2, carve out sacred 2-hour deep work blocks in your calendar, and I mean treat them like meetings with your most important client. Number 3, ask yourself that daily focusing question, and 4, audit your environment. Clear your desk, completely turn off the notifications. Design your workspace so that getting into flow is just the default.
Section 4. Leading with true curiosity.
Moving outward from our internal focus, how do we interact with others when we're under serious pressure? The Society for Human Resource Management provides a really great insight here. Look, in modern leadership, physical threats are pretty rare. There isn't an actual lion chasing you through the office. But psychological stress? Yeah, that is constant. And it triggers what's called an amygdala hijack. Your brain goes straight into fight or flight mode, and that creates this intense mental fog. Instead of staying open and curious, we jump to really hasty, often pretty poor solutions, just because we desperately want to relieve the pressure. Asking questions actually re-engages your thinking brain, which helps you deliberately hit pause and get your clarity back. To combat that mental fog, I want you to use this highly memorable acronym, the LOVE framework. When the pressure hits, pause. L, listen to your own heart and mind. Really know your triggers. O, observe the connections and avoid making rapid assumptions. Ask some clarifying questions. V, value alignment. Make totally sure your next decision actually aligns with those core values we talked about earlier. And E, engage others authentically, making them feel genuinely heard rather than just dismissed. This entire framework keeps your strategic mind online when the pressure is absolutely demanding that you react.
And finally, Section 5. Integrating head, heart, and gut.
To synthesize all of this, let's actually look at AI for a second. We've talked about values, focus, and curiosity, but how do we properly integrate our head, our heart, and our gut to make those really high-stakes decisions? Well, meet Reflectomat, straight from a fascinating academic study out of TU Delft. Normally, we think of AI as an answer engine, right? But Reflectomat is a conversational agent designed specifically to support your pre-decisional reflection. It actually integrates your fast, intuitive emotions, your heart and gut, with your slower, analytical thoughts, your head. It literally maps out how you are thinking in real time. See, most leaders have a dominant reasoning style. Maybe you're super highly analytical, but you totally ignore your intuition. Reflectomate disrupts this fixation by gently probing those areas you're overlooking, like asking, hey, what does your heart say, if you're only focusing on the financials? Then it cures shallow reasoning by asking Socratic follow-up questions to force you to really elaborate. And crucially, it completely preserves your agency. It never tells you what to do, it just makes you a much more integrated, holistic thinker. Just look at the shift in these charts. Without the AI, people tend to fall into a baseline where they rely almost entirely on standard cognitive language. Notice how those blue shapes in the top row pull really heavily to one side? But with the adaptive agent running on the bottom row, users retain their unique strengths, whether they are naturally reserved, intuitive, or highly emotional, while massively expanding their reflection to balance cognition, emotion, and intuition simultaneously. They essentially become fully integrated whole-brain leaders.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today, from finding your absolute core values and measuring a life well lived, all the way to defending your time through essentialism, maintaining your curiosity under pressure, and fully integrating your whole mind. But look, information without execution is literally just entertainment. So, I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. Based on everything you've just learned, if you could only focus on one thing today that genuinely aligns with your truest identity, what would it be? Answer that and go do it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.